So, I got 4 pages of notes here. Season 3, Episode 2. Uh, First off, dude, the child actor. Like, teenage young Jesse, he's nailing it. Whereas, like, the guy that plays Jesse is British. So he's always having to, like, fake a southern accent. The guy that, let's see, what's his name? I actually wrote it down. It's Will Kinder. That guy. Like, oh my god, like that guy has to be like born and raised, right? Because like he just nails it. Like he really did. All right, so here getting into the actual episode. Aside from Dick Redden, um, I would say that Preacher is all about religious satire, but with season 3, you got to keep in mind it's about Southern satire too. And it's like, okay, they have had slaves, like these guys suck, and like I like that they're like we're gonna incorporate that into the lore. Like when you hate them, we want you to hate them for the right reasons, and we're gonna show you all those reasons. And it's kind of going off script, but uh, let's see. When Jesse, the principal wanted to back out, and Jesse's like pulled him back into it. And I think that is what is missing from the TV show, because in the comic, Jesse came upon really foul acts, and he acted very Western like. Like he acted the way you think early Clint Eastwood would act if he came upon some shit like that. And that's the lore of the comic. That's the appeal. Like John Wayne's his center of compass, like his moral idea of what's right and what's wrong. So like when Jesse sees these really foul things happening, he acts like John Wayne would or Clint Eastwood. So I think he tricked the principal into taking the deal just so that he could punish somebody that was feeding off of teenagers. And that's a little bit of that actual Jesse Custer that I just don't feel I've got ever in season 1 and season 2, except maybe episode 2 of season 1, where the guy came to him and confessed about being a pedophile, and Jesse broke into his house and then held him under scalding hot water. Like that's the only 2 times I've seen the real Jesse Custer, and it meant a lot to me as a person that they brought the real Jesse Custer back, and I think they did it in a really subtle way by making him trick the principal into taking the deal. Uh, let's see, what else we got? Yeah, so I don't think Jesse is restricted by the 1% of his soul that's missing. And this is where me and Seth Rogen might not meet eye to eye. But whereas I stand, John Wayne should have been God in the comic, and God should have been the devil. But then they introduced the devil with the Santa Killers, and he was just like a cliche bullshit devil. He was like basically the devil from South Park. Okay? Like, does that put it in perspective? It's like, my version's way better. John Wayne was God the whole time. Like, I'm sorry, my version's better. But in the TV show, I don't necessarily think the 1% is what's holding him back from having the word. I think it's really just like when Thor wasn't worthy of picking up the hammer. It wasn't because he did something. He just didn't think he was worthy, so the hammer's like, okay, you're not. And I think that's what's going on with the word. I think the second Jesse like comes into like his own, I think he'll get it back. And in the comic, it was God. And that's a huge weird part of the comic. It's like how okay, so God's running from Genesis, but he can stop Genesis at any time, and he just chooses not to. That was a huge gaping plot hole in the comic. Like, to this day, that it still doesn't sit right with me. Like, if God could turn Genesis off, why is he afraid of it? But like in the TV show, Grandma brought Tulip back, not God. And I mean, God got his 2 cents in, but even God said, I wasn't the one that brought you back. But while you're here, I have a mission for you. Shoot those sons of bitches. So she went after Grail. And I felt really butthurt the first few times I saw the episode. Like, Tulip, you fucked up, you know? Uh, but then when I watched it tonight taking notes, I realized that Jesse told Tulip it's okay to shoot at them once I have my soul back. And she saw the empty vial on the table. So from Jesse's like looking at it from Tulip's fuck my notes. Looking at it from Tulip's standpoint, she was already supposed to fire and probably would have anyway, but she remembered God telling her, kill them some bitches or whatever. And so she put two and two together and was like, okay, I'm supposed to kill the Grail. And I mean, she already has hard feelings toward the Grail because they did technically kill her. So, I mean, like, why would she not want to shoot at them, right? So, like, a little redemption for Tulip. Also, I feel like the first season was all about Jess, and the second season was sold to be all about Cassidy, but Jess is the main character, so it ended up being about Jess, you know. Season 3 it seems to be all about Tulip. And, like, Jesse's asked Cassidy to leave, and he's like, I won't because Tulip didn't ask me. And Cassidy's asked Tulip to leave with him, and she's like, I won't because Jesse's still part of our family. And, like, I really, really like this. Just looking at, like, fuck the comic. Just looking at it from, like, a TV standpoint. The first 2 seasons were a roller coaster where you're like, oh, it's really good, oh, it's really bad. The fight scenes were cool, but, like, everything else was just kind of like blah. And, like, having Tulip in command really kind of fixes things. Because, like, the only 2 people that are calling shots this season is Tulip and Grandma. Grandma and Tulip. Tulip represents what's right, Grandma represents what's wrong. In the comic book, Tulip's dead the entire story arc. Do you realize that? Like, in the comic, Tulip is dead. Cassidy is not there. I can't remember for the life of me why, but for whatever reason, Cassidy's just not there. So it's just Jesse and Tulip's dead body. So this, like, the TV show is so much more of an improvement because you get to see Tulip and Jody bonding in episode 2. Like, she could have killed Jody. He knew it, she knew it, she knew he knew it, he knew she knew it. He knew she knew it, he knew it. You know what I mean? Like, it was an artillery round of explosive ammo. There's no surviving that. And he's like, here's one bullet. And she's like, I'll hand it back to you. I'm going to go beat some faces in. So, like, that's the dynamic we didn't get in the comic. Like, Jody bonding with Tulip. That, if there's anything to sit there and be like, that's it. Just the idea that, because, like, Tulip and Jody, they only met one time, and it's when Jody kidnapped him and blew her fucking brains out. Like, other than that, Tulip and Jody never knew each other. If anything, Tulip knew TC, because that's the one she went after when she did come back to life. So, I mean, and they didn't even have any dialogue. Like, Jody, in the comic, Jody and Tulip had way more dialogue than TC and Tulip. But somehow she just went for TC and just went for Jody. But I like that dynamic. Not even having to go back to the notes, it just really bothers me that Cassidy's hands are in open sunlight so much of the episode. And that really, really brilliant part where Tulip looked right at him and said, I love you, which brings us to our next thing in a minute. Cassidy's hands were completely 100% out in sunlight. Like, without any even trying to hide it from sunlight. And that bothered the fuck out of me. Even though the scene was epic, and I'll forgive it, because Tulip just looking at Cassidy and going, I love you. Like, Dude, you can't put a price tag on that. For everybody that's ever liked a girl, you get it. So it's like, but his hands were out in open daylight. He's a fucking vampire. The fuck? I mean, I'm cussing, I might as well keep cussing. Alright, this video has to end. I didn't hit any of the 4 pages of notes I wrote. It's interesting that Grandma ate her daughter's soul, which you didn't necessarily realize in episode 1, because they're just like tired of the machine. You don't know what the hell this machine does. Episode 2, you find out the machine eats the soul of the person. And in the comic, I'm sorry, I'm just going to spoil it because they're probably going to change it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But in the comic, shit came out like 20 years ago. If it's a spoiler, it's your fault. But in the comic, Jesse meets his mom way down the line, and she's cool. Like, she left. Like, I think she lost an eyeball, but at that point, Jesse had lost an eyeball, so it was like 2 peas in a pod. It's like, you don't talk about my eyeball, I won't talk about your eyeball. But like, in this one, I think it's going to work out differently, where it'll be like, he meets her, but she doesn't have her soul anymore. And that might actually help fluff up the very finale of the whole series, when they actually finally have their basically last showdowns, you know? In a way, it's like Jesse's last showdown with Star. It's Jesse's last showdown with Cassidy. Who, keep in mind, Cassidy is a vampire. He has 50 times the strength of a normal man. Like, they don't imply it, but they've specifically said it. Like, when Jesse caught his punch, they specifically stated Cassidy's 50 times stronger than Jesse. So, I mean, like, that's a big deal. Like, that little fluff up in the first episode, that was a big deal. This guy is so much stronger than Jesse. The fact that it was an even fight is a big deal. And that's why when Jess asked Cassie to leave, and Cassie said no, Jess is like, you know, this is like, he's not an easy fight. Like, Jesse can't fight Cassidy for real until he beats Jody. And that's for real. Like, Jody's his graduation. And that brings me to something I wanted to mention earlier. When Jess was making that creepy pedophile principal sell his soul away, and he was like, dude, you're a piece of crap. And he just started kicking him. Jody, like, looked at him like, yeah. And it really made me think. And it's like, if I was Seth Rogen, the one character I'd want to get right is Jody. And the second character I'd want to get right is Grandma. And like TC, Cassidy, all them would be way at the bottom of the list, even Tulip. And like, they're getting Jody right. Jody is straight up Jody. Like, in the comic, he would go up in a building and just kick her by his ass. You know, like, that's him. Like, he's smart. He speaks very well. Like, toward the end, right before Jesse finally beat Jody in the comic, they were like, dude, why don't you like this guy? You know, like, what is it with you? Like, what is it with you and Jess? You know, like, why don't you like him? And he's like, I can't respect a man that won't stand up for himself.